Medieval warfare was as complex and brutal as the time itself. From knights clad in gleaming armor to the walls of towering castles, each region of Europe had its unique strategies and innovations that shaped the battlefield. Today, we'll explore the foundations of warfare in medieval Europe and the rise of its iconic knights. But this is only the beginning. Stay tuned as we delve deeper into sieges, strategies, and the weapons of the age. Let's start with the foundation of medieval armies, the feudal system. The feudal system was the backbone of medieval society and warfare. In exchange for land or fiefs, vassals pledged loyalty to their lords, promising to raise armies when called upon. This decentralized system allowed medieval kings to summon vast armies in times of war. But it wasn't always efficient, loyalty was fickle, and the effectiveness of an army often depended on the individual ambitions of its leaders. At the center of this system was the knight, a figure as symbolic as they were practical. Knights weren't just soldiers, they were a warrior class born from a lifetime of training. A boy of noble birth might begin as a page, learning the basics of courtly life and combat. By adolescence, he'd serve as a squire, assisting an experienced knight while honing his own skills in battle. Finally, through a ceremonial dubbing, he would be recognized as a knight, a title carrying both prestige and immense responsibility. Knights were the tanks of the medieval battlefield. Early on, their chainmail offered flexibility and decent protection, but by the late medieval period, plate armor made them nearly invincible. Their arsenal was just as impressive: longswords for deadly precision, maces to crush armor, and lances for devastating charges on horseback. But knights alone couldn't win wars. Most medieval armies relied heavily on infantry, foot soldiers who made up the majority of forces. These men, often peasants or lower-class freemen, carried a wide variety of weapons, spears, axes, or even improvised tools like scythes. Their role was critical, especially as the medieval battlefield evolved. One of the most significant changes came with the rise of ranged warfare. Longbows, short bows, and crossbows became indispensable. The crossbow, in particular, was revolutionary, capable of piercing armor and easy to train with. It became a weapon of choice across Europe. But if we are talking about archers, the English longbowmen deserve special mention. These soldiers were trained from childhood to use their massive bows, capable of firing arrows at incredible range and with devastating power. The longbow was the secret weapon of English victories at battles like Crécy and Agincourt, where disciplined volleys of arrows could stop even the most fearsome cavalry charges. Speaking of charges, let's take a moment to explore cavalry tactics. Cavalry was the pride of medieval armies, and knights formed its elite corps. Mounted charges relied on speed, discipline, and sheer terror to break enemy lines. A line of knights thundering toward you with lances lowered was more than just a military maneuver, it was psychological warfare. But cavalry wasn't invincible. Well-trained infantry, especially those wielding pikes or forming shield walls, could neutralize even the most powerful mounted units. The evolution of infantry tactics and weapons ensured that the dominance of cavalry was never absolute, creating a constant arms race on the battlefield. While open-field battles were dramatic, much of medieval warfare revolved around another type of conflict: the siege. Sieges were the ultimate test of strategy and endurance. Castles dotted the European landscape, serving as both homes and fortresses. Defenders relied on towering walls, moats, and narrow gates to keep enemies at bay. Attackers, meanwhile, brought an arsenal of siege weapons to breach these defenses. One of the most iconic siege engines was the trebuchet. Unlike catapults, trebuchets used a counterweight system, launching massive projectiles with pinpoint accuracy. These machines could hurl boulders weighing hundreds of pounds, destroying walls or terrifying defenders. Battering rams targeted gates, the weakest point of any castle. These massive logs, often reinforced with iron, were swung repeatedly to break through. Defenders countered with everything from boiling oil to sorties, small groups of soldiers who would rush out to destroy the ram. But sieges weren't just about weapons, they were about endurance. A siege could last months or even years, with starvation often forcing a surrender long before walls were breached. And then there was the psychological side. Some attackers launched diseased corpses over walls to spread plague, while others made gruesome threats to break the defenders' morale. Yet not all sieges ended in bloodshed. Some defenders negotiated surrender terms, preserving lives but losing their stronghold. In medieval warfare, survival often meant compromise. So far, we've explored knights, infantry, and the art of the siege. But this is just the surface of medieval warfare. Europe's regions each had their own unique contributions to the art of war. Next time, we'll dive into how geography shaped tactics, from the open plains of France to the mountainous strongholds of the Holy Roman Empire. If you want to see how regions like England or Scandinavia adapted to these challenges, stick around for episode 2.